In 1996, a plain black nylon backpack walked down a Milan runway. No logos screaming for attention. No gold. No sparkle. Fashion insiders laughed. And then everyone copied it. Within 2 years, every luxury brand had a nylon bag. Gucci, Fendi, Louis Vuitton, they all followed Prada's lead. But none captured the same magic. Because Prada wasn't selling a bag, it was selling an idea. That moment quietly split luxury fashion in half. On one side, brands chasing loud status. On the other, a brand betting that restraint itself could become power. That brand was Prada. And the strangest part is that Prada didn't start as a fashion rebel at all. It started as something much safer, much older, and much more boring. To understand how Prada became one of the most copied and counterfeited brands on earth, we need to go back to a leather shop that had no interest in being cool. In 1913, Mario Prada opened a small leather goods store in Milan. He sold trunks, steamer bags, travel cases. They were made from imported exotic leathers and built for Europe's upper class, people who traveled slowly, dressed formally, and didn't want attention. The store was called Fratelli Prada, Prada Brothers. It sat in the Galleria Vittorio Emanuele II, one of the world's oldest shopping malls. A place where royalty shopped, where every detail mattered. Mario sourced walrus leather from England, crystal from Bohemia, tortoiseshell from exotic markets. Each piece was handcrafted, each stitch deliberate. The brand became known for quality, not fashion. Mario Prada famously believed women had no place in business, which is ironic because the brand only survived because a woman ignored him. After Mario passed, the company quietly drifted. Trends changed, hard luggage fell out of style. Prada became something young people walked past without noticing. By the 1970s, the brand was nearly irrelevant. The family considered selling, closing the doors, letting the brand fade into history. But Miuccia Prada had other plans. And that's when Mario's granddaughter, Miuccia Prada, stepped in. She wasn't trained as a fashion designer. She studied political science. She was involved in left-wing activism. And she had absolutely no interest in making pretty clothes. She wanted to challenge what luxury meant. In 1978, she met Patrizio Bertelli, a leather goods manufacturer who would become her business partner and husband. Together, they made a radical decision. They would keep making bags, but not the kind anyone expected. That disconnect would become Prada's secret weapon. But first, she needed to break every rule her family built. When Miuccia took control in 1978, luxury fashion was obsessed with excess. Big logos, bright colors, obvious wealth. Prada did the opposite. She introduced black nylon handbags made from industrial material used in military gear. The fabric was called Pocono. It was waterproof, lightweight, indestructible, and completely unglamorous. The first bag was called the Vela backpack. It had a small triangular logo. No lining, no unnecessary details. It cost more than leather bags, but looked cheaper. Fashion editors called it ugly. Customers called it genius. The bag launched in 1984. Sales were slow at first. Then something unexpected happened. Fashion students started buying them. Then architects. Then artists, people who rejected traditional luxury. By 1985, the bag was a cult hit. By 1990, it was everywhere. Fashion critics were confused. Why would anyone pay luxury prices for something that looked utilitarian? Because it wasn't trying to impress. Prada became known for something rare in fashion, intellectual style. Clothes that didn't scream wealth, they whispered confidence. By the early 1990s, Prada was dressing a new kind of elite. Artists, architects, filmmakers, people who wanted to signal taste, not money. In 1996, Miuccia launched the Prada Sport line. Sleek, technical, futuristic, it became a uniform for the creative class. The red stripe logo became iconic. Athletes didn't wear it. Creatives did. It showed up in music videos. independent films, art galleries. Prada Sport wasn't about performance. It was about looking like you had somewhere important to be. By the mid 1990s, Prada wasn't selling beauty, it was selling taste. If you understood Prada, you felt like part of a quiet club. And that feeling turned Prada into a cultural signal, one that spread fast. Celebrities started wearing Prada, but not for red carpets. They wore it off duty, in airports, at coffee shops, running errands, because Prada made them look like they weren't trying. And that became the ultimate flex. In 2006, The Devil Wears Prada hit theaters. The film wasn't about Prada, but the title alone cemented the brand's cultural power. Prada became shorthand for elite taste, for knowing what matters, for being on the inside. And that's when the counterfeits exploded, which is exactly when another industry noticed: the counterfeit industry. Counterfeiters don't copy just any brand. They copy brands that balance three things: recognition, desire, simplicity. Prada checked all three. The triangle logo was clean and easy to reproduce. The minimalist designs meant fewer details to mess up. And the cultural prestige made people want in, fast. Fake Prada flooded markets worldwide. By the early 2000s, counterfeit Prada was everywhere. Street markets in New York, night bazaars in Bangkok, online marketplaces globally. Some fakes were obvious, others were disturbingly good. The problem wasn't just lost revenue, it was brand dilution. When everyone carries a Prada bag, real or fake, does it still mean anything? But here's the twist: Prada's minimalism made fakes easier to spot if you knew what to look for. Real Prada pieces are obsessed with precision. Stitching is tight and perfectly aligned. Hardware feels heavy and deliberate. Logos are never crooked, raised, or sloppy. The triangle logo sits flat, never puffy. The font is specific, never generic. Zippers glide smoothly, never catch. Leather smells rich, never chemical. The lining is clean, never messy. And the weight feels substantial, never hollow. Here's what experts check. The logo triangle has exact proportions. The stitching count is consistent. The hardware has specific engravings. The serial number follows a pattern. The dust bag quality matches the product. Even the box has weight standards. Real Prada doesn't cut corners. Ever. Counterfeits often get the idea right, but miss the execution. That obsession with execution wasn't accidental. And that philosophy shaped everything the brand touched next. Unlike many luxury brands, Prada doesn't chase trends. It often releases collections that feel uncomfortable at first. Boxy silhouettes, muted colors, designs that take time to understand. And then a year later, everyone else is doing it. In 2011, Prada released the Flame shoes. They look like cartoon fire. Fashion critics hated them. 6 months later, they were sold out everywhere. Influencers were hunting them down. Resale prices tripled. That's the Prada pattern. Confuse first, dominate later. In 2019, Prada released bowling shirts covered in cartoon monkeys. They looked ridiculous. They sold out in days. In 2020, bucket hats with the logo. Sold out. In 2021, terry cloth shorts. Sold out. Prada keeps proving the same point. If the brand says it's cool, it becomes cool. That's cultural power. Prada doesn't sell fantasy lifestyles. It sells thought. That's why Prada is constantly referenced in art, film, and architecture. The brand doesn't just dress people, it frames conversations, which makes owning Prada feel different. You don't wear it to show success. You wear it to signal awareness. That subtlety is also why counterfeit Prada wears differently. Fakes may look close on a table, but once worn, they feel wrong. Materials fold differently, shapes lose intention. Prada designs clothes to move with the body, and that detail separates legacy from imitation. But the pressure from counterfeits has only grown, and Prada had to respond. Prada invests heavily in supply chain control. Unlike brands that outsource everything, Prada keeps tight oversight of production, especially in Italy. Over 80% of Prada products are made in Italy. The company owns its factories, trains its artisans, controls every step. That's rare in modern luxury. Most brands outsource to cut costs. Prada does the opposite. They invest more to maintain standards. Because once quality slips, the brand dies. They also deliberately avoid oversaturating the market. Scarcity protects identity. And while other brands plaster logos everywhere to fight fakes, Prada stays restrained because overexposure would dilute the brand faster than counterfeits ever could. The strategy works because Prada understands something deeper. A brand doesn't die when it's copied. It dies when it loses meaning. And meaning is something counterfeit factories can't mass produce. In 2019, Prada made another bold move. They partnered with Adidas, a luxury brand collaborating with sportswear. It seemed wrong, but the collection sold out in hours because Prada understood something others missed. Luxury isn't about exclusion anymore. It's about intention. The Prada x Adidas Superstar sneaker retailed for $450. A regular Adidas Superstar costs $80. People paid the difference. Not for better materials, for the Prada name, for what it represented. And yes, counterfeits appeared within weeks, but the real ones still sold. Because authenticity isn't just about the product. It's about the story you're buying into. Which brings us back to that black nylon bag. Prada didn't become iconic by being loud. It became iconic by trusting the audience to think. From a quiet Milan leather shop to redefining modern luxury, to becoming one of the most copied brands in the world. Prada proves that real influence doesn't chase attention. It creates gravity. And while counterfeits will always exist, they can only copy the surface, never the intention. Because Prada was never about looking rich. It was about knowing why you didn't need to.